Hey everybody, welcome to the video. Let's go over the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway on Sunday, September 6th at 6 p.m. Eastern for the first race of the NASCAR playoffs for the 2020 season. So it should be a pretty good one, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are as well. And something else I'm looking forward to is that we're actually not going in blind this week. We actually have some data and information to look at because NASCAR has rained here twice already this season. The first time was being on May 17th. When NASCAR made their big return from their couple of month-long hiatus. Then the following Wednesday on May 20th, they also raced here as well. So it's like we had 2 long practice sessions, and I think the drivers that were good in those first 2 races, it'll probably carry over into this weekend as well. So just keep that in mind as we're heading into the weekend. So if you need some extra data points, check back and see how drivers did this first 2 races, and I think that'll probably be pretty helpful heading into Sunday. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like. I know it's something as small as just leaving a like on a video, but the more you guys interact with my content, leaving likes, leaving comments, and all that fun stuff, it's going to really help me out, and I really do appreciate that, and you guys do a good job of that already, so I want to thank you for that as well. And if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be here all season long trying to help you guys become better NASCAR DFS players, and I cover other sports as well. So if you're going to keep coming back to the channel each and every single day, or each and every single week, you might as well hit that subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new content. And if you don't follow me on social media, I'm at Pennell16 over on Twitter, CPen16 over on IG. I don't really post fantasy stuff on my Instagram, but if you want to look into my personal life, I see where I'm going out to eat, playing mini golf, playing Warzone, whatever, you can follow me up on IG. And if you miss more content over on Patreon, obviously always much appreciated. You can join a community of around 300 people right now. Hop into the Discord chat, bug me all day if you want. I don't care. I'll be in answering questions or just coming in, hanging out. Always a good time in the Discord. Or you can just get access to all the extra content that I put out each and every single race day, including my main sheet, which I do preview for you guys on YouTube, but I do not show you everything. Then my projections, which they've been pretty good this season. They have taken down multiple tournaments. I just plug them in my optimizer, play with my exposures, and they've been pretty good so far this year. Then the power rankings, which is just the statistical-based algorithm, just ranking guys on a number of statistics. Then it spits out a power rank, a place differential rank, dominator rank, and Darlington ranks, steep track ranks, all that fun stuff. It's on there. The green flag speed ratings, which is something I have really relied on this season because we have no practice. So looking at how fast drivers have been at certain tracks, certain tire combinations since the NASCAR restart, the entire season, or certain track types or all that fun stuff, it is on there. It's all categorized. So if you want to look at specifics, like if you want to see how a driver did in this certain left tire combination for this weekend, the green flag speed ratings are up for that. So it is all on there, and it's something I use each and every single week. Then my cheat sheet, my GPP driver exposure, so you know exactly where my money's going, and I have notes on each and every single driver and why I have them at that certain exposure. I build 150 lineups every week, so it is all there. The previous optimal lineups, the past Darlington slate analysis, looking at past ownership, past points scored here, all that stuff, it is on there and more. So if you're interested, links in the description below. If you're not, that's fine. Let's just dive into today's slate. And actually, I should mention, if you do want to sign up on Patreon, it is the beginning of the month, so it is the best time to do so because that's when you get the best bang for your buck. But anyway, before I keep talking, let's just get into the preview of this slate. And also, before we get into the preview, I do apologize, but the live stream, since the race is at 6 p.m., I'm probably thinking around 3 or 4 o'clock Eastern on Sunday, probably around when the live stream is going to be. So I will keep you guys posted for that. I'll tweet it out on Twitter, and then I'll have the live stream schedule posted a day or probably a day before it happens. So you guys will find out, but plan for around 3 to 4 p.m. And then if you guys want to get into the DK contest, I will be doing that once again. Just comment your DK username below, and the first 100 people that reply, I will shoot you a invite on DraftKings, probably around $3 to $5, and I'll do the top 20% payout once again because it seems like you guys like that. So that's the plan again. So if you want the DK contest, comment your username below, say something nice, say something mean, doesn't matter to me, but I'll invite the first 100 people that I see. So anyway, let's get into the preview of this race after 5 minutes of me talking, but hey, if you don't like the intros, just skip through it. Doesn't matter to me. Anyway, so Cookout Southern 500. This is at Darlington Raceway. It is a steep track. It's pretty unique the way it's shaped and whatnot and how it works, but it's still a steep track. It's about 1.3 miles in length, and we're going to have 367 laps, meaning we have 275.25 dominator points available, meaning, yeah, we're going to need some dominators in our lineup. This is not a strict place, just strictly a place differential track like last week at Daytona. Daytona all about the place differential. Here at Darlington, we want guys that can lead laps in the front row with Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin this weekend. I mean, these guys should be able to lead a lot of laps. So we're definitely going to have some interest in multi-dominator builds. I think with the way pricing goes, you're probably going 2 to 3. I don't think you could fit in 4 unless you're hoping a guy like Bowman dominates. But I think for the most part, you're looking at 2 dominator builds, but you might be able to stretch that 2-3 in some cases, but I haven't really tried to build many lineups yet. I kind of played around to see how it worked out, but I've still got to do my projections and whatnot. So we're probably looking at 2 dominator builds for the most part, but maybe you can stretch that 2-3. But that's pretty much it for the preview. I mean, it's nothing too special. Just, again, multi-dominator builds, and then you fill out the rest with place differential guys, and we can probably just get into the driver-by-driver breakdown at this point, and we will do that right now. And let me just say, I think DraftKings did a pretty good job for the most part pricing these guys. I made it pretty tough to fit in lineups, to be honest. Like Eric Jones, I was kind of hoping to be a lot cheaper. He's 9,600, so they're not throwing you any cookies there. You really have to make it a emphasis in your lineup if you want to fit in Eric Jones. So I think they did a good job for the most part. I do think Stenhouse is way overpriced. 9,200 is just kind of laughable. It's not like we're at Daytona or anything, so not sure why he's that expensive. But for the most part, I think they did a good job. But we'll start up top here with Denny Hamlin. He comes in 11,400. He is starting second. He's going to be one of the biggest favorites to win this race. Him and Kevin Harvick are the 2 favorites. And honestly, they should be the 2 guys that are most likely to win. We actually saw them trade wins the first 2 Darlington races. We saw Kevin Harvick dominate and lead most of the laps in the first race, and he won. Then in the second race, Denny Hamlin did not dominate that race, but he led 12 laps and ended up winning, and he was in the right place at the right time at the end of the race. And that's just something Denny Hamlin typically does pretty much every single race this year. It's been pretty much the Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick show for the 2020 season, and I see no reason why that would change in the first playoff race. So Denny Hamlin, definitely a threat to lead a lot of laps here. If you're looking at his numbers at Darlington, the past 6 races, average running position of 7.6. He's got 2 wins, 4 top 5s. I believe the second most laps led, and top 5 in fast laps. I don't know the ranking off the top of my head. I do have the rankings on the sheet, but he's definitely been dominant at Darlington. If you're looking at his numbers at steep tracks, the past 10 races, he's been amazing. 3 wins, average running position of 7.7, the most laps led per race in this season. He's obviously been excellent. So yes, I like Denny Hamlin quite a bit. He's near the top in the charts and the average green flag speed ratings for every single category the whole season since the restart. Darlington steep tracks, the tire combination, and the left side tire combination. So yeah, Denny Hamlin, he's an elite play. The only problem is he's super expensive and he's starting right beside Chase Elliott. Now Chase Elliott's got a decent chance of leading the majority of the early laps, and if you think Elliott leads all the laps early on, if you also think Kevin Harvick is going to lead the second portion of this race, Denny Hamlin's not going to be worth his price tag if you don't think he's going to lead any laps. Now, personally, I do think he's going to get up front at some point at this race because he's starting in the front row and he's got a good pit stall because he did well at Daytona. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a fantastic play. I'd be shocked if he doesn't lead any laps here. Now, is he as good of a play as Chase Elliott, just like point per dollar wise? Maybe not because Chase Elliott's in the best spot to dominate, but definitely like Denny Hamlin here. It's just I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to fit him in my main lineup because like Elliott and Kevin Harvick are both cheaper than him, and Elliott starting in the pole, and Kevin Harvick gets you a little bit of PD upside as well. So he's a tough fit, but definitely an elite option in all formats. Dropping down to Kevin Harvick, he's 10,900. He is starting 8th, and it's hard to view him as not being the best play in the slate. I mean, he's starting 8th, so you get a little bit of PD upside, and he is an absolute rock star at Darlington. He dominated, I think, 159 laps led in the first race, and he won, and he is first in every single statistical category at Darlington the past 6 races, averaging nearly 8 DraftKings points per race, an average finish of 3.8, which is kind of insane. He's got 117.5 drive rating, 5 top 5s, 1 win, the most laps led, the most fast laps. He has been so good at Darlington. At steep tracks, he's also been very good as well, nearly first in every single category, him and Denny Hamlin. And then if you're looking at the 2020 season statistics, 7 wins, averaging 70 DraftKings points per race, 16 top 5s. The guy has been fantastic. He's first in average green flag speed this season, first since the restart, and first in pretty much nearly every single category. So I love Kevin Harvick, and I think he makes an excellent pairing with either Chase Elliott or Denny Hamlin. I think if in cash games, I think you want to use one of the front row drivers and then pair Kevin Harvick with one of those guys, because if you're playing both the front row drivers, if one of them doesn't dominate, it's probably going to be looking a little rough in your lineups. But if you throw in Kevin Harvick, you get a little bit of PD upside, and it's just hard to it's just hard to imagine him not leading laps at some point in this race or really contending for the win. So yeah, love Kevin Harvick paired with one of the front row drivers. Can you play both the front row drivers in the same lineup? Sure, but I don't think it's as safe as playing like an Elliott with a Kevin Harvick for the most part. So yes, love Kevin Harvick. I know it's obviously easy to say that he's a great play, but he is. He's on paper a great play and just everything. So definitely like Kevin Harvick. Chase Elliott, 10,600. He's starting on the pole. Have to imagine he's going to carry quite a bit of ownership. Now, if you're looking at his average finish, that's going to be a little bit skewed because I believe he finished, it was either 37th or 38th place in the second Darlington race this season. But don't forget, he was running second when Kyle Busch wrecked him, and that led to the famous meme of Chase Elliott flipping off Kyle Busch when he was on the track. So that's when that picture came from. And look, Chase Elliott honestly could have won that race, if I remember correctly, because I think he was gaining on Hamlin, but then didn't it get rain shortened? I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But yeah, Chase Elliott is a fantastic player. He's on the pole. He's pretty much first or second or third in pretty much every single green flag speed rating. He was excellent at Darlington. Actually, I think he had the second best average green flag speed rating at Darlington this season. He's first at steep tracks, first in this tire combination, and first in this left side tire combination. Or actually, I take that back. Denny Hamlin's first in this tire combination overall, and then Chase Elliott is second. So, I mean, you pretty much have the two fastest cars on the front row, and then you got Kevin Harvick right there in eighth. That should be able to come up in the second portion of this race. So, yeah, like Chase Elliott quite a bit, should be a factor in this one. And again, some of these numbers are skewed because he did wreck out of the last race while running in second place. But, yeah, no reason not to like Chase Elliott. I think if you're playing cash games, he's going to be the first guy you plug in because he's on the pole, and he should be able to lead a lot of laps early on. Now, the only issue is that there's going to be an early competition caution, so he could end up getting shuffled out at first place, and if that happens, there's a decent chance he doesn't get the lead back. But assuming he holds onto the lead because he does have the first pit stall, he should be able to do fine on pit road and get out front. So definitely like Chase Elliott here. And then dropping down to Ryan Blaney, 10,300. He's starting 7th. To be honest, not feeling Ryan Blaney. I think there's just much better plays on this slate. I like every single person in the 10K plus range, much better than Ryan Blaney. Kyle Busch starting 15th. He's very good at Darlington. He offers you more PD upside. Chase Elliott I like a lot more. Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. I think all these guys can lead laps. Ryan Blaney, on the other hand, just not very good at Darlington. He's got 0 top 5s here, 0 top 10s, 3 top 15s, but I need more than a top 15 at over 10K starting 7th. So probably going to be a pass on Ryan Blaney for me. He doesn't typically run that well at the steep tracks as well. You know, he's had one of the fastest cars this season, but I'm just not feeling it here at Darlington. Maybe he's someone you can throw in a couple of percentages in if you're building 150 lineups, but outside of that, I don't think you can really target Ryan Blaney. I just don't see him dominating. Don't see it happening. Then dropping down to Kyle Busch, he's 10,000. He's starting 15th. I certainly think he's playable, but probably more in a GPP sense. Now, I know he offers you some PD upside, but dominator points are going to be much more premium here than place differential. If Kyle Busch gets the top 5, yeah, sure, that's going to be just fine. But if Denny Hamlin comes out and leads 100-plus laps, he's going to be obviously a much better play than Kyle Busch. So he's playable. I just don't think he's certainly not a lock button. I think he's more of a GPP play here. But he's been pretty good at Darlington. Average finish of 8.5, running position of 9.8. Finished second here earlier in the season. That's when he wrecked out Chase Elliott. But 3 top 5s recently. Hasn't won here, but 52 DraftKings points per race, some of the most laps led per race, and some of the most fast laps. So I think Kyle Busch is certainly fine here. I know he's a really tough guy to trust for the most part, but he's shown some speed this season. If we're looking at his 2020 statistics overall, he's not been that bad. He's just not dominating or winning races. Like, he's only averaging 8.9 laps led this season per race, which if you look at everybody else in this tier, it's much, much lower, and even some of the guys that are cheaper than him. But he's got 11 top 5s, which is only behind Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. That's it. So he's been there. It's just he's not winning races. But I still think he's fine here. He's cheap. He's the cheapest driver in this price range, and he also offers you the most PD upside as well. Don't really see him leading many laps, if any, this race. But if he happens to get up front and gets lucky on pit road, yeah, it's going to be looking pretty good because he gets you that PD upside as well. So Kyle Busch is fine, but probably more in a tournament sense. Then dropping down to the 9K range, we have Joey Logano, 9,800. He's starting 13th. I just feel like he hasn't been a factor lately as much. Like earlier in the season, he was running pretty well, but I just feel like he hasn't really been much of a factor. But starting 13th, I think he's fine in tournaments. I think Kyle Busch will probably gain more ownership than Joey Logano, so I guess Logano is a decent pivot off of Kyle Busch. I also think Eric Jones and Martin Truex will get ownership as well, so I think Logano should be coming in pretty low owned here, and I think he's somewhat interesting. He doesn't typically dominate here at Darlington, but he does have 2 top 5s, and if you're looking at his numbers so far this season, he's been pretty consistent with an average running position of 9.4, only 2 wins and 6 top 5s, but we know he's certainly someone that's capable of leading laps, and I think he's interesting. It's just he doesn't really pop out on the page for me, but if you want a low-owned potential dominator, I don't hate Logano. He's just one of those guys that tends to find a way to get up front like his teammate Brad Keselowski, which we'll talk about Keselowski. He's way too cheap this weekend, but Logano's fine in tournaments, but not in love with it. Wouldn't go there in cash games. Now, Eric Jones, 9,600. You guys know I love playing Eric Jones, and when I saw he was starting 30th, I was like, oh, well, Jones is probably going to be my highest-owned driver this weekend, but DraftKings priced him up to nearly 10,000, which does not. It definitely makes it pretty hard to fit him in your lineups, because if you're playing like a Chase Elliott with the Kevin Harvick, it's really tough to throw in a 9,600 Eric Jones. So if you're playing Jones, you're probably sacrificing one of these guys, which I'm not really sure if it's worth it or not, because, again, Eric Jones, if he, look, I got an average finish of 5.4 here, which is insanely good. This is one of his best tracks. That nets you around 60 to 65 points, give or take some fast laps. If he does that, yeah, that's great. But if a guy like Kyle Busch happens to get a front lead laps, he's probably going to dust Eric Jones in the fantasy points category. Same with guys like Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, and Denny Hamlin. So Eric Jones is a very safe play here, but they have upsides of over 100 DraftKings points, while meanwhile Eric Jones is probably capped at 70 for the most part. So keep that in mind, but I do think he's a very safe play here. He is super good at Darlington. Again, an average finish of 5.4, which is the second best, only behind Kevin Harvick. He's actually won here and dominated before. He's got 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, averaging 60 DraftKings points per race, 106.6 driver rating. He ranks out very well for me, but just keep in mind, he is super, super expensive, so he's not going to be that easy to fit in, but I definitely think he's playable. It's just I'm not sure how easy he's going to be to fit in our lineups, but definitely a very safe play. Dropping down to Martin Truex Jr., he's 9,400. Actually, before I move on, I do want to mention something with Eric Jones. If you're looking at the 2 Darlington races earlier in the season, he ran very well. He finished 5th in the second race and 8th in the first race, which is 2 top 10 finishes. And if we're looking at our average green flag speed ratings, which I did print out on a piece of paper here, Eric Jones had a green flag speed rating of 8.5, which is only behind Clint Bowyer, Alex Bowman, Truex, Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Kevin Harvick. So some pretty good cars. So I think Eric Jones should be able to run pretty well here. And if he gets you a top 10, top 5 finish, you're going to be looking at close to 70 DraftKings points if he can pick up some fast laps along the way. So definitely have some interest in Eric Jones. Then Martin Truex Jr., 9,400. He's starting 6th. So he doesn't like pop out as much as guys like Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, or Chase Elliott, but he's also priced at only 9,400. So I think he's someone's. We certainly want to have some interest in tournaments here, because I do think those guys up there will definitely soak up most of the ownership. But Truex, if you're playing a guy like Truex instead of Kevin Harvick, you're probably going to be able to fit in a guy like Eric Jones much easier. So that's why I'm kind of liking these Truexes, Brad Keselowskis, because it's going to give us a little bit more flexibility in our lineups. Now, I think it's as likely that Truex will dominate this race over a guy like Elliott, Hamlin, Kevin Harvick? No, but that's how we're going to have lower ownership on him, but I still think he's fine in tournaments. He's been pretty solid at Darlington. Only 1 top 5 the past 6 races, but he does have a win, 4 top 10s. It certainly lit some laps here and actually has, I think, the third most, or actually tied for the second most fast laps with Alex Bowman. So he's been fast here, and the numbers really check out here. So, yeah, I think Truex is fine in tournaments. Starting 6th, he's certainly a threat to get up front for the second portion of this race. And only 9,400. I think you're getting a nice bargain on Truex, so I think he's a fine tournament option. Dropping out of Stenhouse, he's 9,200, starting 29th. I think we can probably just cross him off our list for the most part. He does not typically run that well at Darlington. Average finish of 26.2 here. Running position's even worse at 26.6. Drive rating of 54.5. He has 1 top 15 and 2 top 20s, and it just really hasn't gone that well for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, he typically runs pretty well at these steep tracks, but at 9,200, that's kind of a joke. Like, give me Kurt Busch. Give me pretty much literally everybody here besides Ricky Stenhouse. I just can't do that price tag at 9,200. Is he a fine PD play? Yeah, but, I mean, if you're just going off the averages, it would be gaining 3 spots. Now, I think he's better than a 26th place car. He's probably going to contend for a top 20, which he has done a couple of times here, but at 9,200, I need a little bit more than that. So dropping down to Kurt Busch, he is starting 16th at 9,000. He's someone I really like in tournaments because I think guys like Keselowski will gain some ownership. Jimmy Johnson will. I don't think Stenhouse really will, but Truex, Jones, Logano, these guys are going to have some ownership. Meanwhile, Kurt Busch starting 16th, that kind of puts him in no man's land because he's not really a PD play, but he's not a dominator play either. So it kind of puts him as a high finishing position upside play, but there's definitely potential for that. He's actually ran very well at Darlington. He had an average running position of 10.3 here, an average finish of 11.3, 2 top 5 finishes, 4 top 10s. He actually led laps here before too and got quite a bit of fast laps. Now I'm not expecting him to dominate this race in the slightest, But I do think a top 10 finish is definitely in the works here. And if you're looking at his numbers this season, he's actually been one of the more consistent drivers. He doesn't really get top 5 finishes or win races at all. But he does have 4 top 5s this year, but 14 top 10s, which is actually pretty darn good. An average winning position of 13.6 with an average finish of 12.6, which is actually better than drivers like Logano, Kyle Busch, Blaney, Chase Elliott. So he's been pretty consistent this season. And starting 16th, I don't mind being overweight on him in tournaments, but again, it's really not that easy to fit him in our lineups. Dropping down to the 8K range, you have Brad Keselowski, 8,800. And this is really just a price play here. I don't think it's likely that he dominates. But Keselowski is one of those guys that always finds a way up front. And he's less than 9K. I'm not sure what the price tag. I don't know what DraftKings is doing here. I mean, Stenhouse being more expensive than Brad Keselowski is kind of just a big punch in the face to Keselowski because that's just straight disrespectful. Because this has been a good track for him. He's averaging over 50 DraftKings points per race here. Average finish is 7.8. Running position is 7.2. Has a win, 3 top 5, some of the most laps led and some of the most fast laps. And he led 80 laps here, I believe, in the first Darlington race. Now, he did start on the pole, and then I think in the second race, I think he got a top 5. Yeah, I just went back and looked. He finished 4th and led 7 laps. But still, I mean, he should be a top 5 contender here, and he's less than 9K. So if you're using guys like Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex in your lineups, that's not a lot of money. You can easily fit in guys like Eric Jones and even a Kyle Busch. So I don't mind being overweight on these low-priced dominators because there's certainly potential there, and it's going to give you more flexibility in your lineups. I don't think they're the cash game plays, but they certainly open up your lineups in tournaments, and I think Brad Keselowski is just simply underpriced here. He's been one of the most consistent drivers this season, and he's just one of the guys that always seems to find a way up front, whether it's on pit road or he just gets lucky with a caution or just something happens for him. So definitely like Keselowski, and he's been one of the stronger cars this season. Austin Dillon, 8,600. He's starting 12th. Now, he actually runs pretty well at Darlington. It's just I don't like this price tag, and I don't like where he's starting. Average finish at 12.2 here, which is pretty good. He's got a top 5, 2 top 10s, and 4 top 15s. But I would rather play Jimmie Johnson. He's starting 10 spots further back, and he's also a little bit cheaper. And look, 8,600 for Dillon starting 12th is just a bit much to ask. Now, he's been pretty good at these steep tracks the past 10 races. I'll give him that. 5 top 10 finishes, which is 50% of his races. He's finished in the top 10 the past 10 races, which is very, very good. He's got a top 5 average finish of 11, which I think I already mentioned. So I'll give Austin Dillon props, and I've actually been on him quite a bit so far this season. It's just, I mean, 8,600. He's a tournament play. He's not a full fade guy, but definitely wouldn't make my cash lineup. That's for sure. But Jimmie Johnson, 8,400, starting 22nd. I think he's a fine option. And on the first Darlington race, he was actually in first place and he wrecked out, so he finished last. So that's going to skew these numbers a bit. I mean, he's better than an average finish of 24.3, that's for sure. Now, Darlington hasn't been a great track for him recently, but in his second Darlington race, he started in the back and he moved his way up and got a top 10 finish. I believe he finished 8th. And he's had a pretty solid fast ride so far this year. He doesn't really dominate races or really get a bunch of top 5s, but he has gotten some top 5s this season. If you're looking at his numbers for the 2020 statistics, he's got 4 top 5s, 9 top 10s, average winning position of 13.8. Starting 22nd, I think he's fine. If you're looking at his past 10 races at steep tracks, average finish of 11.2, 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s. So it's been really a pretty good track type for him, and I think Jimmie Johnson at this price tag and where he's starting is a fine option. Eric Almirola, 8,300. He is starting 10th. He's okay. He's a guy you can sprinkle in tournaments, not a cash game play, but he's going to be one of those guys that goes pretty low and that certainly has some top 5 potential. If you're looking at his past 6 races at Darlington, not great. 1 top 10, 3 top 15s, and 5 top 20s. But, you know, he's just the guy that's been pretty strong this season. If you're looking at his numbers, he's got 5 top 10s, 5 top 5s, and 14 top 10s. He's actually been pretty good in the average green flag speed ratings for Darlington, and at steep tracks, and in this tire combination. So I think Almirola is fine in tournaments. I don't think the upside's huge for him, because I don't think he's going to lead laps, and I really don't see him improving too much on this on the 10th place starting position, but the upside's there, and I don't mind that price tag. So don't mind Almirola, but don't love him either, but I won't be full fading him. Then Clint Bowyer, 8,100. He's starting 9th. So if you're looking at the second Darlington race, he actually ended up leading quite a bit of laps, but that was due to the invert, and then a couple of things shaked out where he ended up being the main dominator early on. But now he's starting 9th, 8,100. I just don't really see it working out for Clint Bowyer here. He's not typically that good at Darlington. Average finish at 23.8, running position of 17.5, 1 top 10, only 1 top 15, and 2 top 20s. I really don't see the reason to really want to use Clint here. If you're looking at the track type for him, he's pretty good at steep tracks, but that's thrown in tracks like Bristol and Dover, which are kind of unique tracks in the most part, so it's kind of hard to compare them. But He's pretty good at steep tracks, but I just don't really see him getting a top 10 finish here for the most part. So again, I say it for guys I really don't like, but you can sprinkle them in tournaments, but not a cash game play. Then drop it down to the 7K range. We have Alex Bowman at 7,900. He's starting 4th, and I think this is an interesting play here. Interesting play in tournaments. Because he finished 2nd here in the first Darlington race, and he actually led, I think, 41 laps, and he did well. He made the optimal lineup, but since then, that was a long time ago. His speed really has not been the same as it was. Like, he was really good at Fontana before that race, or I say before that race, but it was a couple months before that. And he was looking good, but he's just lost his speed for the most part. We haven't really seen him running up front. But at that price tag, starting 4th, there's an outside chance he could get up front, which I think is somewhat appealing in tournaments. Again, he's not a cash game play, but he's somewhat interesting here. He's got an average running position of 12.3, only one top 5, which was the earlier Darlington race in this season. He's got a lot of fast laps due to that race earlier this year, but he's an iffy play. But if looking at the steep tracks, the past 10 races, he's got 3 top 5s, running position at 12.7. I think he's okay as a tournament play, but I think it's an outside shot because, look, he's got to pass Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott early on. Then he's going to have to hold off guys like Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., and Kevin Harvick, which I don't think is likely. But if you're playing Bowman, you're kind of hoping he gets lucky on pit road and ends up out front. Because if you're out front in Darlington, there's a good chance you can lead quite a bit of laps. So I don't mind Bowman in tournaments. William Byron, 7,800. He is starting 3rd. I don't love it. He also, with Jimmy Johnson, wrecked out of that race. He was running really well early on. I believe he was running 2nd. Then when Jimmy Johnson crashed, I think he was in 1st for a little bit, if I remember correctly. But I don't know. He just doesn't typically run well at Darlington. And starting 3rd, there's a lot of room for error here. He's only averaging 10 DraftKings points per race, an average finish of 25.8. Now, again, those numbers are going to be skewed because they're wrecked out. So average running position of 15.2, I think, is a better indicator of how he'll perform. But look, if he's going to get like a 10th to 15th place finish starting 3rd, it's going to be negative DraftKings points. Now, not overall negative, but negative place differential points, which not going to get the job done. I think there's other better 6K and 7K plays than William Byron, so not really on Willie B this weekend, which I guess I wasn't for Daytona and he won the race, but he was a little bit lucky. But at Daytona, you got to get a little bit lucky at the end. But he looked good. I know he's leading the pack early on, but he's, very, very minimal exposure on William Byron if you're playing him. Cole Custer, 7,600. He is starting 14th. He was not good at the 2 Darlington races earlier this season. And starting 14th, I just don't have a lot of interest here. The steep tracks this season in 7 races, it's not gone well. Average running position of 20.8, finish of 21.4. And then this season, average running position of 19.2, finish of 19.5. Pretty much a 15th to 20th place car most weekends. And I think that's probably what's going to happen once again. So not a lot of interest in Cole Custer starting 14th. MDB, he's 7,400, starting 11th. Again, he's just starting a bit too high. Now, if you're looking at his past numbers at Darlington, they're not too bad. But I really just have a hard time seeing him make the optimal starting 11th. Do I think there's top 10 potential here? Sure, he did it in 2019. He did it in the last Darlington race. But, again, he's starting 11th. Like, if he gets a top 10 finish, you're not really netting that many points. Now, he's fine in tournaments because if he can squeak out a top 15, a top 5 or a top 10, that might be able to get the job done in the optimal, but there's just not a lot of room for upside there for MDB. So just a tournament play only for me. Ryan Newman, 7,200. He is starting 31st. Now, Ryan Newman is pretty much the most vanilla play there is in DFS. You know he's pretty much going to finish around 15th place, and that's what I would expect here. If you're looking at the 2 Darlington races earlier this season, he finished around 15th place both times. I think he was like at 13th or 14th place. It might be a little bit off, but it was around there each time. But if he does that starting 31st, he's going to score us around 45 DraftKings points, which I'll take that any day at 7,200. So definitely have some interest in Ryan Newman. If you're looking at the past 6 races at Darlington for him, average finish of 14.3 and average running position of 15th. He's pretty much just like a 15th place car these days. He's got 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, and 5 top 20s. If you're looking at his numbers this year, they have not been great. He's been pretty slow, but he's got 9 top 15 finishes, running position of 19.5, and I think he's a fine, safe play at 7,200, starting 31st. Then Tyler Reddick, 7,000. He's one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. He ran very well at Darlington earlier this season. If you're looking at his numbers, average nearly 50 DraftKings points per race, average finish of 10th. I think he finished 7th and 13th. The math would check out there because 20 divided by 2 would be 10. So yes, those were his finishes. And look, he's ran very well in this tire combination this season. It's like a combination of Homestead, the 2 Darlington races, and a couple of other tracks off the top of my head that I'm forgetting. But do like Tyler Reddick. He's shown quite a bit of speed this season. I think he should be a lot more expensive than he is. He should be around 8K. Like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at 9,200, starting of 5 spots further back than Reddick. I don't understand the price difference there of nearly $2,000. So I think you're getting a great price here on Tyler Reddick, and someone I definitely have some interest. If you're looking at his numbers at the steep tracks this season, average finished at 15.6, a top 5, 2 top 10s, 4 top 15s, and so far this season, he's got 18 top 20s, 12 top 15s, and yada, yada, yada. You guys get it. Tyler Reddick, I think, is a very good play, and he's also mispriced as well. Then going down to Christopher Bell, 6,900. He is starting 21st. Only 2 career cup races here, but the one went pretty well for him, where he had a really good finish of 11th place. Now, I don't think he's going to get an 11th place finish again. I believe in the other race he finished 28th, but I believe he ran into some issues that time. But I think Christopher Bell should be a top 15 contender here, and at only 6,900, that's certainly going to enter my radar. Starting 21st, I think he's a fine option so far this season. And he's pretty much been like a 15th to 20th place guy for the most part. He's got 10 top 20s, which again, he's kind of a guy that likes to wreck quite a bit. So the top 20s haven't really been there as much as a guy like Tyler Reddick, who's been super impressive this season with 18 top 20s. But I still think he's a fine option. He's got 5 top 10 finishes, 5 top 10 finishes, 1 top 5, 8 top 15s, and 10 top 20s. So Bell's fine at his price tag. I think he's a little bit underpriced. I remember the days when he was 12K. Now he's all the way down to 6,900, and it's crazy that I'm like debating on if I want to play him, because at 12K, I mean, people were playing him at 12K, and now at 6,900, it's kind of, I don't know, it feels like he'd be higher owned than he is some slates, but I think he's a fine option here. Then Bubba Wallace, 6,700, he's starting 17th. Don't really see a reason I want to play Bubba here for 200 more. I'd much rather play Christopher Bell. I'd rather play Matt Kenseth at 6,500 as well, starting 26. So not a lot of interest in Bubba Wallace for me. Pretty much a 15th to 20th place car, but there's not a lot of upside for the most part. But if you're looking at his numbers this year, running position of past 6 races at Darlington, which are actually the past 4 races for Bubba Wallace, running position of 23.1, average finish at 21.8, only 1 top 20. Just not a whole lot of interest there for Bubba for me. Matt Kenseth at 6,500, he's starting 26. I think he's a fine play here. Now, in the first Darlington race, he finished 10th, and the next one he finished 30th, so, kind of a wide range of outcome there. But I think he's okay for the price tag, and he should be able to contend for a top 20 here. Looking at the past 5 races at Darlington for him, it's been a decent track for him. He's got 3 top 10 finishes, running position of 14.1. Keep in mind, though, again, circumstances have changed. He's got a new car, he retired, he came back. The same spiel with Matt Kenseth every single week, and this season he's not really been that impressive for the most part. Running position of 19.9, finish of 20.1, but he's got 11 top 20s, 7 top 15s, and he should contend for a top 20, top 15 finish here at 6,500, so certainly a decent value play on this slate. Michael McDowell, he's just starting a bit too high for me. I think he can get you a top 20 finish, but he's someone you're probably looking at for tournaments. The past 6 races here, he's got 3 top 20s, but an average running position of 25.2, average finish at 24th, a drive rating of 53.5. So he's the guy you can look at in tournaments and hope he gets a top 15, but I just don't really expect that, and I think most likely he probably ends up moving back. John Hunter Nemechek, 6,200, he is starting 18th. He had one really good race here and then one not so well, but did get a top 10 in one of the races here. Average finish of 22 the past 2 races here, so again, not a big sample size. Average running position of 27.7. Can't really look too much into this. If we're looking at his numbers at steep tracks this year, he's got an average finish of 20.9, running position of 23.3, and 4 top 20s. We're probably looking at a 15th to 25th place car here, and starting 18th, we just don't get a whole lot of upside. So Nemechek, kind of on the outside looking in to be on a lot of my lineups this weekend. Dillon, 6,000. He is starting 25th. I think he's a fine value option here. If looking at the past 5 races for Dillon at Darlington, he's got 4 top 20. So all but one race, he's not finished inside the top 20. Also the top 15 finish, an average finish of 18.4, averaging over 30 DraftKings points per race. So like Dillon here at 6,000. Wish he was starting a little bit further back, but I think he's fine at only 6,000, and you really don't need him to do much. You're kind of just hoping he has a clean race and hangs around the top 20 for most of the day. So don't mind Ty. Ryan Preece, 5,900. He's starting 35th. Probably going to end up being a pretty chalky option here. Now, he did wreck out of one of the races, so it's going to skew the numbers a little bit. But for the most part, he's been a 20th to 25th place car at Darlington. Average running position of 23.2. and he's got 1 top 20. And if you're looking at his numbers this season, it's not been pretty because the guy loves to wreck, but he's got 7 top 20 finishes, average running position of 23.7. He's below 6K, and he's starting 35th. So Ryan Preece, unfortunately, I think we got to like him quite a bit heading into the weekend. He's going to allow us to fit in our guys like Denny Hamlin. I don't know why I almost said Matt Kenseth. Allow us to fit in our guys like Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, those kind of guys. So definitely like Ryan Preece for value. Daniel Suarez, 5,800. He's starting 28th. He's just starting too high up for me. When he was in good equipment, he wasn't good here. And now in worse equipment, I can't expect much out of him here. So Daniel Suarez starting 28th, probably going to finish there or further back. Chris Buescher, 5,700. He's starting 20th. So I want to like Chris Buescher, but the 2 Darlington races earlier this season do give me a bit of concern because he did not run well whatsoever. But if you're looking the past 6 races, he's been good here. He's got an average Draftkings points per race of 30.8, average finish inside the top 20, 2 top 15s and 4 top 20s. Now starting 20th, there's not a lot of upside here, but he's just too cheap. 5,700 for Chris Buescher, just, I don't know. I think that just screams value. I don't think he's going to gain a lot of PD spots, and he very well could lose a couple of spots, but at that price tag, I think the upside outweighs the risk here. So definitely don't mind some exposure on Chris Buescher just because he's super, super cheap. Corey LaJoie, 5,500, starting 27th, probably going to finish right around there. He hasn't really been that good at Darlington. It wasn't great earlier in the season, and he's just not in a strong car for the most part. Now, he's dirt cheap, but I don't know. I just don't really see him having that great of a race. He's got 6 top 20s this season, 1 top 15 and 1 top 10, but average finish at 24.1, running position at 26. Probably going to gain a spot or two, but he's kind of just there if you need a pump play. And then after Corey LaJoie, I can't really recommend playing any of these guys. Joey Gase is starting as far back as you can, so you can't really lose your points. But he's got, if you're looking at his numbers at Darlington the past 4 races, average finish of 33.3, average running position at 34.8. Yeah, he could gain you a couple of spots, but I don't know, it's just ugly. Yaley, Bilicki, Sorensen, you're just not playing these guys. If you're looking at their previous optimal lineups this season, they don't make optimal lineups outside of super speedways, so can't really recommend anyone below Corey LaJoie for the most part. But I think that's going to be it for the video, guys. I think it was a long one, but if you made it all the way through, let me know. I love hearing that in the comments below. Again, if you want to enter into the DK contest, put your DraftKings username below. And if you haven't liked the video already, I am out of focus, aren't I? Oh yeah, and by the way, I did get a haircut and shave my face, so I got a little bit of baby face action going on here, which I don't like, so apologize for that, although I know you guys don't care. But anyway, yeah, live stream's going to be around 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. And then, again, yeah, if you haven't liked the video, do that. It really does help me out. Really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. It also helps me out, and I also do appreciate that as well. If you want to follow me on social media, feel free to do that. If you want to support me on Patreon, links in the description below. But that's pretty much going to be it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you hopefully on Sunday.